Welcome, everyone, to the G Note Podcast. I am your host, Jason Spicy G. Goldman, and I'm a Grammy-winning record producer, arranger, and musician. I've been a music professor at USC for over 22 years, and I am most known for writing and producing music for the iconic Michael Bublé over the past 2 decades. This is a podcast for musicians who want advice and strategies on navigating the music industry. If you're not a musician but a music fan, I promise there's plenty in here for you as well. On this pod, we talk all things music. On today's pod, we are talking about how the value of music has changed and what's to come. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome back. Today, as I mentioned, we're talking about the value of music in 2024 and how it's changed. I've addressed this in some of the earlier pod episodes, so if you are an avid listener, you may notice that I have mentioned some of these points before. Today, I want to dive into this a bit deeper as I think it's really important, as musicians and non-musicians, to always be thinking about history and how we progress. Anyone born in the 90s and earlier definitely understands that the value of music has changed. If you were born later, don't turn me off just yet. I promise I'm not going to go into the classic, when I was your age routine. But if you paid for music, not by a subscription, I mean paid for like a vinyl, cassette tape, or CD, then you understand that when you spent money on an album, and yes, an album, not a single, then you listen to it. Some of us would save up to buy an album and even have a countdown until the album came out. They would do it on the radio, they do it on the TV. It was a big event. Now, I specifically remember when Michael Jackson's Thriller came out. I mean, everyone was waiting on TV to see this whole event. If you bought the items I mentioned, you probably were very proud of your collection of music at some point or another. I was talking about this with my wife the other day. We would organize, our collection by band name, the band name. And then after a few months, we may decide, well, that album title seems like it's better. If people came over, they could check it out and, you were always proud of it. Or if you were extremely hip, you'd have some secret way of organizing your music so that only you knew how to find things. You could, again, be like my wife who would organize the albums by when she actually purchased them. I mean, that's pretty serious and heavy, folks. Next, after you bought your album, you would listen to the entire album while at the same time reading the liner notes. Remember, you just spent anywhere from $10 to $20 on this album. Even if you were earlier and you paid $5 for albums, you spent your money on this album and you're going to listen to it all, even if some of it's not great, for many reasons. So for those that are not aware, liner notes came with a copy of the album. And sometimes the artist or band would write them, write the actual liner notes. And other times it could be, a big music person or a music critic. And the notes many times included the artist's intention or conception of the album, the personnel, who wrote what song, perhaps the inspiration of the album or concept of the album. This was all a big deal. We would spend many nights debating bands and albums as to who was better, with friends, as if this were like a competition or something. And why such album or artist was more important in the grand scheme of music. So as you can see, we spent a great deal of time thinking about music and the artists that created the music, and we fell in love with them. If you were born after 2000, this was fairly foreign to you. And I like to call these people streamers, because that's really what they knew, is streaming. And many of you who are listening are probably streamers. You might have had some CDs or bought one or two of them, but that was more something that your parents listened to. Streamers really listened to singles. While some early streamers would stream albums, it is mostly about listening to what you want at the exact moment you want to listen to it. There was no waiting anymore once streaming happened. No listening to the B-side tracks. Again, for those that don't know, these were the tracks that were obviously not the singles, but were important to the artist. So not having to listen to more than one song by an artist, you didn't have to do that anymore. Obviously today you don't have to do that. And I really want to make this clear. I'm not speaking ill of streamers at all. Streamers are just doing what they grew up knowing, which is streaming music. They did not have to buy music, except in the early days, maybe of iTunes or something like that. My 3 kids are streamers. However, my wife and I still play the radio all the time. And anytime we go on trips, we play a lot of full albums by artists. Actually, anytime the kids are in the car with us, we're playing either the radio or listening to a full album. Today, it's all about paying your monthly subscription, and you can listen to whatever you want, as we all do now. But you can see that because there's no waiting, there's no liner notes, there's no excitement behind an album release, that streamers' value of music is much different than prior listeners. Because of the ease of creating and releasing music now, the market is so saturated that people are desensitized to new music releases. I mentioned this before that, the last time I checked, there were over 40,000 songs being uploaded a day to Spotify. A day. And I think that's probably an older number. At this point, there isn't even a point in doing a pre-release campaign for a single or an album. If you're going to promote, you might as well have the music out for people to listen to immediately, because that's how it works. And trust me, folks, I release music still, so this is all from experience. All this to say, it's not that people don't love music. They just don't love it as much.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
The value has changed from music being a vital art in our society to being a piece, quote unquote, a piece of content in the larger picture of getting noticed. Yes, I'm definitely a bit cynical of this, obviously. Calling music a piece of content is I don't even know where to start with that. But please hear me out with the rest of this one. Almost everything, like I said, is about singles today. By the way, there have always been singles. That single thing isn't a new thing. But usually the single was the introduction of the sound to an artist's new album. Now, there are artists releasing music every single week. I mean, that's just freaking insane. With my band, The Fridays, we release a new song every month. And I can tell you, even that is really difficult to do. So, in essence, we're rolling out an entire album in a year. It's taking us a full year to make an album. Now, of course, we can go back to, and I mentioned this before, the glory days when, artists would spend 6 months creating a whole album and just be in a room together in a studio. Obviously, that doesn't happen anymore. No one's got that kind of money. But it's important to note that. Now, add into this social media, which has now become the primary way to discover quote-unquote artists, i.e. like TikTok or Insta Reels or YouTube Shorts. And you probably understand what I'm saying about people believing that music is a piece of content. Just a note also, video and music have a long history of being associated with each other. In fact, some of you may remember there was a cable TV station long ago called MTV, short for music television, dedicated to playing bands and artists and their music videos. This was before MTV had changed to becoming a reality TV station to stay alive. So it's definitely that I'm not against video and music being put together, because again, I'm a 70s baby, so 70s and 80s, MTV, that was the thing. People are now learning small portions of iconic songs, not from the original recording, right? They don't even know who actually sang it, but because of a dance or meme created around the song. Sometimes sped up or slowed down, hence the music being a background or just a canvas for something visually appealing. Again, I'm not knocking what things are per se. I'm just telling you the facts. So I guess what is the point of this whole diatribe here? It's really to acknowledge that the value has changed. I've showed you this in terms of people's habits, and we can even see it financially. What used to cost you $5, $10, $20 for an album now costs you $15 a month for as much music as you can consume in a month. Record labels who were once kings of music took a massive financial hit when streaming first happened. However, they got savvy before they were extinct and now understand that it's not just about the music anymore. They have streamlined and only really care about the quick buck. No more artist development or taking a chance on an artist. I'll get into this more on another episode later. Because, I know this is kind of a dark topic, so I try not to do too many episodes on, the darkness in the music industry, but this is really important. While much of this information is not new to people, it's important to discuss and try and find a path forward. That's why we're talking about this, right? It's important to know history so that we can understand what's happening and where we want to go as artists and musicians and bands. How can we turn the focus back to music? And maybe we can't, by the way. Maybe that ship has sailed. But we have to know this as, a lot of people listening to this pod are professional musicians. And I'm not the one saying, hey, go raise our flags and fight. That never seems to work in the music industry, right? It just doesn't. Like, we're always the first one to cave on everything, it seems like. So what we do is we adapt quickly, which has been a very positive thing for musicians. We can adapt quickly. So all of this to say, we have to be mindful of history, and we have to understand as we begin to create music and begin to think about how we're releasing music, we need to think about the habits of the listener and where music is right now and how we can make adjustments and set ourselves up for success, right? Again, for professional musicians, for a career in music. It's all important to take this into consideration as you are planning to be a professional musician. Because if you're not thinking about this stuff, you could be in for a rude awakening. And that's what I do on this show is I try to be as honest as I can with you and tell you how the industry works and give you advice and strategies, as you know in my intro. We have to learn from history. We have a new battle to deal with coming up very quickly. And the battle coming up is going to be our toughest battle yet. And that is AI. Folks, that's all the time we have for today. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this pod so you can stay up to date with new shows, giveaways, and more importantly, the concerts. Come hear my big band at the Vibrato Bar and Grill. It's a blast. We have a great time. Also, you should check out my new group, The Fridays with I co-lead it with an incredible vocalist named Sarah Nimitz. Go check out our singles. Again, we release a song a month, and the album will be coming out at the end of the year. I'm excited for that. You can check that out at The Fridays Make Music on Instagram. You can also follow me on Instagram at Spicy G Music, or check out my website, jasongoldmanmusic.com, to see what projects I'm currently working on and to see when I'll be performing next. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Much love. Peace.